Hello everyone, welcome back to my class. In the previous session we have seen the facet design pattern. We have seen the definition, that is the intent section of the facet design pattern. That is, it is going to provide the unified interface for all the subsystems. Okay, that is a set of interfaces in a subsystems will be there. No, for that it is going to provide the unified interface. So that we have studied in the previous class, and even we have studied the motivation behind using the facet design pattern. So why we need to use the facet design pattern? So I told you the example of a compiler. So where in the compiler actually what happens, you have got so many subclasses. For example, it contains a parsing, it contains a syntax analyzer, semantics analyzer, bytecode generator. So many subclasses are there that those are all not visible to us, right? So compiler means what we are going to think, just it is a compiler, it is going to debug our code. So that is what we are going to think, right? So I'm not going to worry about how it is going to be implemented. So means what are all the subclasses that is present in the compiler, those things I'm not going to concentrate as a user, as a programmer. So I just run my program and I'll check it whether it contains an error or not. This is what I'm going to do. So but internally in the software, the compiler consists of so many subsystems, that is nothing but a subclasses which are interlinked with each other. Each subsystem will be connected to other subsystem. There is a huge complex structure that is present in the compiler. Yes, taken an example of compiler, so that is why I'm using that example. You can consider any of the classes like that, any classes that consist of so many subclasses. So that you can consider for this facet design pattern as an example. So in that kinds of situation, when the compiler is a main class, so and which hides all the operations that will be taken place within the internal elements. Okay, so client will not be knowing any of the operations, right? So means it is going to avoid, it is going to provide an interface, right? Unified interface for all the underlying interfaces. So that is nothing but the facet design pattern, and for that the best example we have seen in the previous session, that is a compiler. Okay, so now we'll see applications of this facet design pattern. Facet you want to provide simple interface for complex subsystem. So that is, we are going to discuss the applications, right? And that the first application is, if you want to provide the simple interface for the complex subsystems, you can choose this one. That is what I explained till now. That is when you have so many subsystems that is connected with each other, so they are dependent with each other. So much of dependency will be there and the interconnection will be there. So in that perspective, in that environment, so you can use this facet design pattern. So that is the first application. So to provide the simple interface to overcome that complex structure that is present in the subsystems, so you can use that one. We'll see the second application. To decouple the abstraction from implementation, you can tell. See what happens when you are going to design the compiler system, as an example I had taken. So what happens there? When you have a compiler, the client is going to connect with the compiler system and is not aware of the things that is going to present in the underlying subsystems, right? So here what happens, so the client who is accessing the subsystems, so that should be different. It should not be directly connected. The client details and the implementation details that is present, there should not be a direct link between these two. Okay, that means the client should be independent and the implementation details should be independent. There we should provide the decoupling. So decoupling is nothing but there is a gap, or there is an means we are going to avoid the direct connections between the client and the underlying subsystem. So that can be achieved using the facade design pattern. So facade design pattern will enable you to decouple the abstraction from its implementation. Implementation is nothing but the subsystems that is present, those are all not accessible for the client. Okay, so client may not see the implementation details. So that is what the meaning. So the compiler is the facade who is going to decouple these things. So means is avoiding the direct connection between the client and the subsystem. So that is the another application. We'll see the next one. You want to layer the subsystem. See, when you have got so many subsystem and you just want to maintain the layers for the subsystem one after the other, how the one subsystem is connected to another subsystem, the link between those subsystems, the entry point to a subsystem, exit point to a subsystem, like that you need to provide the layer one after the other. So for n most layers, right? So if you want to provide the layer like that, so then you can use this facade design pattern where it is going to mark the exit point at the entry point where you can enter for the subsystem. So you will be having plenty of subsystems under the main system, right? So actually this facade, it is going to mark the entry point as well as the exit point. So that will help you like that. So that was our third application, and these are the few of the applications of the facade design pattern we are going to come across. Okay, so next we'll see the structure of the facade design pattern. So this structure diagram, actually it resembles the previous motivation diagram, so that we have seen in the previous session. I'll write the structure diagram. Structure is nothing but the syntax of the facade design pattern. We'll see that one. The subsystem are actually they are interconnected with each other, right? So that's why I am writing the diagram which are interconnected with each other. There might be lot of connections like this. So these are all your subclasses or subsystems. And this is your design pattern, and above that will be the client classes. Okay. So in this diagram you can just see here. So you have a structure of the facade design pattern. Here this facade, this box, it is going to tell us we have used the facade design pattern. So it is an entry point between this client and the subsystem. It is an exit point for the client systems, means the main systems, and it is going to be the entry point for the subsystems. What are all the subsystems? So subsystems are nothing but, I told you, so these are the set of interfaces or a set of subsystem, maybe subsystem 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. Okay, so you have got so many subsystems and each of the subsystems are interconnected. You can just see here. So those are all connected with each other. There may be again inheritance concept between these subsystems also. Here you can just see. So you have got so many dependencies here, right? So you have got dependencies also. So dependencies means there it will be a interconnection, means lots of connections and the communications will be taken place, right? Communication will be taken place, lots of communication. Since they are dependent on each other, so there might be lots of communication, so there are lots of interconnections there and dependencies are more. Okay, so now what I need to do, so if I connect all the subsystems with the client system, that is a main system, it is difficult for us to maintain the system like that. So it will make us a complex one. So I cannot rectify which subsystem I am going to access, which subsystem I need to remove, which system is dependent on which system, like that. So it's difficult for us to identify the things which is being taken place. So if you provide an unified interface which is which is going to be a layer, okay, so that layer covers all this subsystem that is present, okay. So means all the subsystems are not visible to the client systems, means client classes, okay. So the upper classes, the main classes that is present, no, so that person or that classes it is not going to have access to this one directly, okay. So there is no direct connection between the above classes and the subclasses. Why? Because we have got a facade here. So this facade is going to interconnect the subsystem and the main systems. Okay, so that is the operation of the facade design pattern. So facade design pattern, it is going to be the unified interface for set of interfaces in a subsystems. Okay, so that is the actual definition. So by looking at the diagram itself, you can tell. So this is the subsystems. Okay, so now by looking into this structure, you can write what? You can write the participants, right? Participants. So actually you have got only two participants here. So that is your facade. So you can just recall in this facade, in the motivation example, which name was there? That is compiler, right? Compiler was there. So you can just imagine now, so facade is having the resemblance to a, that is a compiler, or a compiler is having resemblance to a facade design pattern. So I explain you, that is compiler, it is going to consist of lots of subsystems. So it may contains a parser here. Okay, so maybe the semantics analyzer, maybe the syntax analyzer, coder, debugger, okay, like that. So many operations it may consist, okay, if it is a compiler. So it may include so many operations like this, okay. So that is why the facade is a one participant, that is our DP, design pattern. So which is compared to the example, that is a compiler, so which consists of lots of subclasses, and it is going to provide the unified interface for those subclasses, and it is going to minimize the dependency between these subclasses and not providing the direct connections between the client and the subsystems. So I cannot assign my program directly to this debugger or a coder or a syntax analyzer. It's not possible. I can just go with a compiler, okay. This compiler internally it is going to assign the work to this people and is going to take up a work, right. So that is how we are going to study, right. So that is how the actual process is. The same way it will be a, so the entire things will be done inside in this compiler, that will not be shown to user, okay. So I will see the next participant, that is a subclasses. Subclasses for this example you can take scanner, parser, and even you can go with analyzer like that and so on. Okay, so that will come under compiler. So here subclasses are the subsystems. Okay, so those are all I have taken examples: scanner, parser and analyzer. So they are all the subsystems of this design pattern, and they are going to do the work which is assigned by the facade object. Okay, so they are going to perform the activity, or they are going to perform their operations based on the work assigned by the facade object. Okay, and they don't even know what is facade. They are not aware of the facade only, means they are not aware of the compiler. They just want to know, means they know how to work if the work is assigned. Okay, so that is the task that is being given to these people, means they never know what is compiler, how it is going to act, how it is going to act on us, how we are working. So those details are not known to the subsystems. This subsystem they will just do the work assigned by the facade object, that is a compiler object will be created, and that object is going to assign the work to the subsystems. So who is going to assign this work initially? So that is from the client. The client is going to assign the work to a compiler, and that compiler is going to assign the specific operation to the specific subsystem that is intended to do that particular work. Okay, so this is the two participants that we can study in the structure of the facade design pattern. Okay, so next we will see the collaborations, so how it is being collaborated. Okay. Collaborations, clients, communicate with subsystem by sending request to facade, which forwards request to appropriate subsystem object. Client that uses facade does not actually directly communicate with subsystem objects. So we'll see the collaborations. So I have written two points here. So very first one, so what happened when the client is going to forward the request as a user, you only, the people who is going to write the program, they want to compile or they want to assign some work to the compiler. So the compiler here, that is a facade, okay, so he is going to assign the work to the particular subsystem that is intended to do the work, okay, specific work. So that I explained in the previous topic only. So the same thing we have written here. the clients communicate with the subsystem by sending requests to the facade. The clients actually, they cannot directly communicate with the subsystem. That I included in the second point also. So the clients actually, they don't have a direct connections between the that is a subsystem objects. For each and every subsystem there will be object created, right? So those objects are not directly connected with the clients. So that is included here. And moving forward in the first statement, which forwards request appropriate to a subsystem object, means I told you, so it is going to forward all the requests that is given by the client to appropriate subsystem object to whom we need to assign. So which person is going to do this task, which class is going to do this class, which subsystem is going to do this attention, means permissions or operations, you can tell. So which subsystem is going to do the permissions, which subsystem is going to perform this operation. So based on this kinds of selection, it is going to assign the work. Okay, so this is how the facade design pattern is collaborated. So means actually the facade it is going to work. So it is also going to do some work, and most of the work it is going to assign for the subsystems only. So you may ask the question, then why not the facade is not performing any activity like that? So it is also going to do the work, but most of the work will be forwarded to the subsystems only. So it will provide an interface, need interfacing, so that the subsystem can easily work there, means they are going to perform their activity. Few of the operation even the facade is going to perform. Okay, so that is how the facade is being collaborated. Now we'll see the consequences of this facade design pattern. It shields clients from the subsystem. That is the same meaning that we are going to study. So that we have studied in applications also, right? So means it is going to provide an interface so that client cannot actually see the objects that is being created for the subsystem. So the same meaning here. So that is actually in the consequences here discussed only the advantages of this facade design pattern. Under that the first one is it is going to give a shield, the mask like that. So it is going to provide a shield for the clients, so they cannot see the objects that is being created for the subsystems. So why it has been an advantage? Why? Because when you don't have the shield between the client and the subsystem object, you might be means interconnected with the plenty of the subsystem objects. Now what happens when you are providing the shield between this client and the subsystem object? So most of the objects are not directly connected to this clients. Okay, so not most, none of the objects are created actually, means they are not directly connected to a client. So why? Because everything goes across the facade only. So connections will be lost, means it is going to connected with the facade. So there may be complexities reduced. So each and every object connection with the client is how clumsy work. So it reduced that work actually. So instead of that we can have this facade one unified interface. So through that only the client and the systems object will be connected with each other, instead of connecting with single objects. Means each and every subsystems object will be connected with each other. Clients is a difficult task. So that is actually an advantage here. So that is given in a first consequences. Next we will see the second consequence. It promotes weak coupling between the subsystems and client also. So coupling you already know. So coupling means so it is going to have a dependencies. So that two objects or two classes, two subsystem, when they are dependent on each other, so we are going to call it as a coupling. So there are actually two types of coupling. So that is a tight coupling, and then you have got a loose coupling. So here he has taken a loose coupling as a weak coupling. Okay, so a tight coupling means so complete dependency will be there. They are connected with each other. Each and every operations are dependent on each other. So if I do changes in one subsystem, that will affect in the other subsystems. So that is known as a strong coupling. Okay, so there is a coupling means with the 100% coupling is there. So when you have a weak coupling or a less coupling, so what happens there? Actually you can have a that is changes that can be applied to a one single subsystem. Okay, so that will not affect the another subsystem. So keeping that in mind, so when you do the changes for one subsystem, that should not be affected to another subsystem. So that is our intention. So this facet design pattern that promotes the weak coupling. So there it reduces the coupling between the clients and the subsystem, as well as the between the subsystem only. Okay, so the underlying subsystems will be there, no? So within that also it is going to reduce the coupling, and even it is going to reduce the coupling between the clients, means it is going to provide the independent task. So the subsystem will be independent and the client will be independent. They are not actually tightly coupled. So we are going to maintain loosely coupled system using the facet design pattern. So loosely coupled is taken as a weak coupling here. Okay, so one and the same. We'll see the next consequences. It does not prevent applications to use subsystems. Okay, so it does not prevent applications to use the subsystems, means it is giving you the option to use the subsystems also. Okay, so means there is no strict restriction between the client and the subsystems. You can actually get communicated with each other if you want. So you need to choose between the ease of use, that depends on the user, which makes you use which makes you easy, that you can choose. Okay, so if you use the facet and if there is no interconnection between the subsystems and the client, so you can choose that one. If you are not okay with that one, so you just want to get communicated with the subsystem also, then even you can choose that one. It is left to you. So that is what given in the third consequence. So that is it does not prevent you. Okay, so you can actually get communicated with the subsystems. So in the first point we have given, so the client cannot actually get communicated with the subsystem, so it provides a shield like that. So if you want, you can actually go, so you can use it, so you can just get communicated with the subsystems. It left to you. So based on the ease of use, you can select the two different options. Okay, so those are all the consequences that we are going to study in the facet design pattern. Next we will see a few of the implementation issues that can be arised while designing the facet design pattern. Implementation issues reducing the coupling. Okay, so I told you, so you should actually reduce the, means you need to reduce the coupling between the client and the subsystems. So when you are reducing the that is coupling between the client and the subsystem, so it is going to be the efficient. So there will not be a dependency between the two of the classes, client class and the subsystem classes. So you need to write the program in such a way that is in keeping in mind. So you should enable the less coupling, so you should not have a much dependency. So when you follow 100% dependency, then only it will become a tight coupling. So in that case, for each and every activity, the client need to access the subsystem and the subsystem need to access the client. Like that it will be there. So it will become like that. So instead of that, you design a coding part so that it is going to be at least 50% coupling, not more than that. Okay, you can maintain like that. So not for each and every activity. So for the activity which is required most, so for that you can keep the coupling, means you can keep the less coupling there. So if you follow that procedure, so it will be with an efficient programming, it will not give you the more complexity. So with respect to the dependency, so that is what he has stressed in the first point. So that is the reducing the coupling. So while designing, you should keep this in the mind. Okay, so we'll see the second issue. Public versus private subclasses. Actually what happens, so public and private, it is being used for the classes. In the same way, means private keyword and the public keyword can be used for the that is for even subsystems also. You can use that. So here what you can do, so while implementing, so if you wish to make some of the subsystem as a private, you can make it as a private, and if you want to keep the some of the subsystem to a public, you can make it as a public. Okay, so this is same as for the class also. So the what are all the procedure you are following for the class, the same thing you can follow for the subsystems also. In the packet, so it contains so many subsystems. So for that subsystem, you can categorize into a private subsystems and the public subsystems. So you can keep this also in mind while designing the packet design pattern. So these are the only two issues you need to consider while designing the packet design pattern. Now we'll see the sample code, that is a pseudo code to design the packet design pattern. So in this one, so in a coding part, so we are going to consider the compiler itself as an example. So in the compiler, as I told, so it contains so many classes, parser class, scanner class, like that. So we are going to consider a class called scanner. So scanner, what it is going to do, it is going to accept the it is going to accept all the input, right? So input from the input stream. So we are going to design a small pseudo code for that one, and based on that we are going to have a bytecode stream. So how to go with that one, so how to depend on the subclasses, that we'll see with the short pseudo code. So you can just see in this diagram. So here the scanner class takes a stream of character. Why? Because so it is a scanner and it is going to produce what? Stream of tokens. Okay, so one token at a time. Okay, so we'll see now class scanner. The name of a class is scanner, and it contains a public field. So within that you have got the scanner is iStream. Okay, so that is the input stream, and virtual scanner, so that is a tilde notation, so that is a destructor, and virtual token. So means why we need to have this token? So because it will be converted to a stream of tokens, right? Whatever the characters you are going to accept. And then you have got a private field also, so that it is going to have a input stream, so that it contains the address of a input stream. And then you can see the next coding, that is a class parser uses a program node builder to construct parse tree from a scanner's token. Okay, so we'll see how the coding will be. Class parser, okay, name of a class, and the public. Within that you have got a parser method, so you have got a destructor there, and then you have a method, that is a parse, which contains a scanner and the program node builder, okay, to construct the parse tree. Okay, so that means it is going to construct a parse tree based on the scanner's token. That is a previous program example was there, no? That is a class scanner. It is going to generate the tokens. Using that tokens, now it is going to create a parse tree. Okay, so that is how it is going to work, that is how it is going to actually work. So the very few small examples I have taken. So one thing is that is a scanner class, though it is going to accept all the characters, and then after accepting the characters, it is going to convert it to a tokens, or one single tokens. Okay, so using that tokens as a input. Okay, so for input for the next one, that is a class parser. So it is going to accept that tokens, and then it is going to build the parser tree using that token as a input. Okay, so that is a few two of the small pseudocodes. Actually, you have got a lengthier pseudocode. I think this will be enough to begin with. So that is what you can study in this facet design pattern sample code. Next we will see the noun uses of the facet design pattern. Actually, the noun uses, the first one, that is compiler example what we have taken. Smalltalk. So that is object oriented program. See, what are all the design patterns we are studying? Almost it all comes from this Smalltalk framework, and that is ET++ things, means that is dependent on the object oriented concepts. So actually they have taken this compiler as an example from this part, from this Smalltalk design. Okay, so now when you think of the compiler, you may think about C, C++ languages. Now is going to, means while designing the design patterns, they have thought of Smalltalk designs, and then they have considered the compiler as an example. Okay, means in those days he has considered the Smalltalk, and then while studying in that one, or while analyzing the design in the Smalltalk, so he has taken example of a compiler. Okay, so that is you can use in a Smalltalk also. And next we'll see, as I said, ET++ framework. It can be used in the ET++ framework as a default toolbars for compilers. Okay. So ET++ framework, so it includes the default actions. So means this feature, the facet feature is already means installed, or it is been default in this framework. Okay, so it means just like a compiler, and there is no need of installing again in this framework. So almost all the compiler will work in this way only. So almost all everyone have implemented in this way only. Okay, so we'll see the next example. Choices operating system, a kind of system. Choices operating system, a kind of system where you are going to use this facet to group frameworks together. This operating system, it used this framework in order to group all the frameworks together. Okay, so maybe there might be so many frameworks installed in the particular system, so they have used the facet design pattern to combine all together and give giving rise to a single unified system. So that is what they have followed in the choices operating system. So these are all the noun uses of the facet design pattern. So that is a choices operating system to group all frameworks together. So we'll see example. Actually, you have got a small example for this one, that is a choices operating system, how it is going to group together all the frameworks. So we'll see this example diagram. So you can consider that is a virtual memory framework. Okay, so as a domain. So as it is a facet, so you can consider you have a domain, so that represents the address space. Okay, it provides a mapping between the virtual addresses and the offset into a memory objects, files or backing store. The main operations on domain support adding memory object at a particular address, removing a memory object and handling a page fault. Okay, so means you can just see in that diagram itself, the domain contains add, remove, protect, repair fault and so on. So means the meaning of that one is, so it may go with the adding of a memory, that is removing of the memory elements and so on. So and even it provides the protection, so even it will go with the page faults and all, means repair the page faults. Okay, as with the proceeding the diagram, so the virtual memory subsystem uses the these components like a memory object. Okay, so memory object will be there, that will represent the data store, and then memory object cache, that caches the data of memory object in physical memory. Okay, so and memory object cache is actually strategy that localizes the caching policy, and then you have got a address translation, and that can encapsulate the address translation hardware. Okay, so you can just go through this diagram. So means the domain is actually the your facet design pattern here. So that domain consists of so many subclasses: address translation, memory object cache, persistent store, paged memory object cache, so it contains so many operations which are all dependent to each other. Okay, so all this dependent classes are means it is going to represent the domain as a facet design pattern. So that is how it is being used in the operating systems. So to represent the memory. Okay, so that is a memory is considered as a domain, right? So that domain, so it contains so many operations. So all those subsystem were considered as the means resemblance of our facet design pattern. So there you can find the usage of our design pattern. Okay, so we'll see the we'll see the related patterns to this design pattern. Related patterns: abstract factory, and mediator. So here we are going to have the related patterns for the facet design pattern, that is the abstract factory is related to our facet design pattern, and the mediator is also related to our design pattern. So abstract factory, so which contains a fine tune of all the classes, and the mediator, so the name itself tells us, so it is going to be the person in between two, right? So you will be using this general meaning, right? The same concept we are going to follow. Facet actually means it has done the same concept, it has done the same operation, right? It was between the client and the subsystem. So now you can analyze this concept now. Okay, what is this now? It may be related to mediator, right? So not exactly the mediator work, so it may perform with the different actions and this may perform with a different action. But when you go with the general meaning of this one, mediator, so this will resemble this operation, that is a facet design pattern. So your facet lies here, right? Your facet will be here and it is going to interconnect the client and the subsystem, right? So it is going to be the person between the two classes, client classes and the subsystem classes. So these are all the few of the topics with respect to the facet design patterns. So now we'll see the next design pattern. So that is flyweight design pattern. see this flyweight design pattern. So it is going to provide the sharing to support or to maintain the fine grained objects. Okay, so it is going to maintain the collection of fine grained objects efficiently. So means it is going to provide sharing, means when you have a one single object, that can be shared to any number of classes like that. Instead of creating so many objects for all the classes, so you can actually maintain the concept called sharing. So there you can collect the all fine grained objects together. Okay, so we'll see actual definition of this one through intent section. Efficiently. So that is, it is going to allow us to provide the sharing concept. So by doing so, that is, if you allow sharing, so it is going to give us the large numbers of fine grained objects. I'll tell you what is the meaning of this fine grained objects, okay, in an efficient way. So that is the actual definition of our flyweight design pattern. So means when I told you, so when you have got so many classes and each and every class, it is going to design object for each and every single activity that can be taken place in the class. For example, writing a characters, if you write a row wise characters or a column wise characters, diagonal wise. So if you follow any of the interface like that, or a document, text document like that, so it follows the rows and the columns, right? So each rows and the columns, they are going to have a set of characters stored there. So for maintaining the row wise characters, for maintaining the column wise characters, you need to maintain the objects there. Okay, so for example, you consider the document like this. Okay, so a document like this, which contains so many lines here, so horizontal, okay, row wise and even column wise, I'll tell you. So it contains like this. So in this row, you may be having so many characters like this. Okay, so you may write so many characters. For maintaining, okay, so for maintaining this row wise characters, you need to maintain one object set. Okay, and if you divide the same thing in a column wise, okay, so you need to maintain the objects for each column. So you just imagine how many objects you need to maintain for this kinds of operations. Okay, to write the text, to write any diagrams like that, so to store any elements, so it is a document, totally it's a document. So if you want to maintain a document like this, characters like this, usually what happens, you need to maintain a large numbers of objects. So for I told you, no, so it should be the that is a column wise, it should be the row wise object created. So in this situations, okay, so in this situation, when you need to create more number of objects like this, so you can use this flyweight design pattern. So it is going to provide you the sharing concept instead of creating the object for each and every rows. So if you maintain one single object that points to all the rows, so how it will be, right? You can actually do the efficient programming, right? So that is what suggested in this definition. So instead of creating the object for each and every column like this, if you maintain one object for all this column, means so it's efficient, right? So this is known as a fine grained object. Okay, so means it is going to allow you for the sharing task. So that sharing will support a large numbers of this fine grained objects to use efficiently. Okay, so this actual means the complete concept I will explain in the motivation section. Okay. So next we will see the also noun name. Okay. So if you have any other name for this one. So for this flyweight design pattern, there is no other name, so only one name is a flyweight. Okay. So it does not contain any other name, there is no two names for this design pattern. So that is why it may be dash you can put or null you can write. Okay. So there is no name, other name. So name is there, flyweight, so there is no other name for this design pattern. Okay. So this is what we are going to study. So the motivation section or the motivation topic I will start in the next session. So that is a flyweight. So we have started a flyweight. So flyweight definition and the motivation we will see in the next session. Thank you.